Now the lunchtime news on BBC One with Rajini Vajanathan.
Good afternoon. Pope Francis has greeted a crowd of tens of thousands at the traditional Easter Sunday Mass at St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican. The head of the Catholic Church, who's 88, spoke briefly and made a surprise appearance in his Pope-mobile. Well, it's almost a month since he left hospital after being seriously ill with double pneumonia. Earlier, the Pope held a private meeting with the US Vice President J.D. Vance, who's a convert to Catholicism. Rupert Wingfield-Hayes joins us live from the Vatican. Rupert.
Well, the traditional Easter Mass held behind me here in St. Peter's Square is really the high point of the Christian calendar for Catholics, and tens of thousands of them had come here this morning in order to celebrate. But it was also very clear from talking to many people here that they'd come in hope and in anticipation of maybe seeing Pope Francis, who, as you said, has been extremely ill recently. And so they had come, they knew he was recovering, and there was real hope from many people here that they would get to see them, and indeed they did. Tens of thousands of people had gathered in St. Peter's Square for the Easter Mass, the traditional high point of the Christian calendar. But it was clear many were here for another reason, in the hope of seeing Pope Francis. As the midday bells tolled, the balcony curtains on St. Peter's opened and Pope Francis emerged, still in a wheelchair, to greet the crowds.
Cari fratelli e sorelle, buona Pasqua.
Dear brothers and sisters, he whispered, Happy Easter. The mood here in St. Peter's Square has changed dramatically in the last few minutes as Pope Francis has appeared on the balcony behind me here to give the blessing at the end of the Easter Mass. Pope Francis has been extremely unwell. There were points last month when he was in hospital. There were fears for his life. He is now recovering, but he's clearly still very weak. Despite his frail appearance, those down below were delighted and relieved.
We've been praying so hard for him, so he can recover.
Yeah.
Yes. But it has been, I think, rough, but with hope.
I felt so happy because we've been knowing that he was not well. We didn't expect him to come out. So it was like a surprise, and it really felt good to see him out. That means it's actually getting better.
The Vatican has also confirmed that Pope Francis had a brief meeting this morning with visiting US Vice President J.D. Vance. There had been widespread speculation here about whether Pope Francis would meet with Mr. Vance, having strongly criticised the Trump administration for its expulsion of migrants. It's clear the Pope's main desire today was to take part in the Easter celebrations. And as those came to a close, he rode his Pope-mobile around St. Peter's Square to the clear delight of the crowds of Catholic faithful. But by this stage it was also clear he was looking very weak and very tired. Rupert Wingfield-Hayes, BBC News, in Rome.
Well, here, the Easter sermon, traditionally given by the Archbishop of Canterbury, has been delivered by the Archbishop of York after Justin Welby's resignation last November over the Church's handling of child sex abuse. Meanwhile, the King and Queen have joined other members of the royal family for the traditional Easter service at St George's Chapel in Windsor. Well, our correspondent Tom Simons is there too. Tom.
Yes, the King and Queen arrived with some other members of the royal family, as you said, not the Prince and Princess of Wales who spent Easter Sunday in private, but with Prince Andrew, who turned up in a car with Princess Anne and with Sarah, the Duchess of York, his ex-wife. Interesting, of course, because Prince Andrew stepped back from public life following the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. Doesn't appear to have led to have been being estranged from the royal family. As for the King, well, he seemed very relaxed and fit and healthy. After the service, he did come out briefly, and Camilla led him to a very small group of people who'd been inside during the service. There was a very, very short meet and greet and then back in the car. But he is back after some time in hospital following some treatment, following some side effects from his cancer treatment over the last year. As for the Archbishop of Canterbury, well, there is no Archbishop of Canterbury. Justin Welby resigned last year following criticism in a report about how the church had dealt with a sexual abuse scandal. So his duties were taken over by Dr. Stephen Cotterill, the Archbishop of York, who gave a speech that didn't mention the crisis in the Church of England following Justin Welby's resignation, but did include a call for an end to global conflict.
We need the peace of Christ in our homes, in our streets, in our world, in Israel and Gaza, in the Ukraine, in Myanmar, in Sudan, in the DRC, in all the places of conflict that convulse our world, and against the madness of a world which others drives wedges between communities, breeds hatred and promotes greed.
And the position of Archbishop of Canterbury will remain unfilled for some time. There is a commission that's considering who will take over the job and a period of contemplative reflection until the appointment is made. That is expected, Regini, in August.
Thanks very much. Tom Simons on what looks like a nice day in Windsor. Ukraine and Russia have accused each other of breaching a brief truce announced by Moscow yesterday, which is due to run until the end of today. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russia had continued to shell some parts of the front line and launch assaults. Russia's Ministry of Defence has accused Kyiv of drone attacks overnight. President Zelensky has reiterated Ukraine's willingness to begin a 30-day ceasefire. Well, fighting's raged in Ukraine ever since Russia launched its full-scale invasion more than 3 years ago. Well, this map shows the current battlegrounds. And with more details, here's our world news correspondent, Joe Inwood.
It was not the sound of church bells that welcomed Easter in Ukraine. This was Kyiv, around 4 hours after the ceasefire was supposed to have begun. The surprise 30-hour truce was announced by President Putin on Saturday afternoon. In a meeting with his chief of the general staff, he said he was ordering his forces to stand down for humanitarian considerations. On the streets of Kyiv, the idea of an Easter truce was met with skepticism.
No one believes in the ceasefire. He probably wants to rearm the troops. That is why no one believes him anymore.
I really hope for a ceasefire, but I do not believe in it. The Russians say one thing, but they do the opposite.
And those suspicions were echoed by President Zelensky. Almost as soon as the truce should have started, he was accusing the Russians of breaching it. He said in the first 6 hours there had been 19 assault actions and 387 instances of shelling.
We're just going to say you're foolish, you're fools, you're horrible people, and we're going to just take a pass. But
the suspicion held by many is that this was never about a pause in the fighting, but about sending a message to the White House.
And we also understand the motivation behind this. The last week, there were too many very negative statements from the White House about the possibility to withdraw from negotiations because Russia is not willing to really show their will for peace. So Putin needed to demonstrate something. 30 hours is a very short period as for this war, but he needed to show something for the media picture, for everybody to discuss and to create an image that he's ready for this.
Despite the skepticism about the ceasefire, the Easter weekend has brought some cooperation, if not goodwill. Hundreds of prisoners of war were exchanged. Ihor had been in captivity for over 1,000 days. In both Kyiv and Moscow, Easter Day was welcomed in with familiarity, with similarity. As President Putin offered a 30-hour ceasefire, President Zelensky said he would match Russian actions, but challenged him to pause fighting for 30 days. Few have any faith that that will happen. Joe Inwood, BBC News.
Now let's take a look at some of the sports stories making the news today. It's day 2 of the World Snooker Championship in Sheffield, but there's already been a big shock with the reigning champion Kyron Wilson knocked out in the opening round. The Englishman was beaten 10 frames to 9 by debutant Lei Pifan from China. Four-time world champion Max Verstappen starts today's Saudi Arabian Grand Prix in pole position. Championship leader Lando Norris crashed out of qualifying and will start 10th. Britain's Lewis Hamilton starts the race from 7th. The Corgi was the late Queen's favourite breed of dog. She owned more than 30 during her 70 years on the throne. Well, this weekend has seen the annual Corgi Derby held at Musselburgh Racecourse in East Lothian. For more, here's Scott Duffield.
And they're off. 16 dogs, 70 metres. There can only be one winner.
It's 14! 14 has won it!
And this year, it was local legend Juno who took the top prize.
I'm sure she just wants more treats, but yeah, it feels good. She came 9th out of 12 last year, so a little bit of an improvement there. And yeah, I'm sure we'll be showering her with treats later.
In the hotly contested race, the 4-year-old Portobello resident pipped last year's champion Rodney to the finish line. And the secret to her training?
You just let her chase you all the time, up and down the beach. That's what we did.
The Musselburgh Racecourse Corgi Derby launched in 2022 to mark the late Queen's Platinum Jubilee by celebrating the monarch's favourite breed. It's since become an annual celebration. And waving the starting flag this year for the second time was tennis legend Judy Murray.
It's always a carnage because they're so noisy at the start because they're so excited, and you've got one owner with them at the start, you've got the other owner at the finish line with the treats or whatever it is. And some of them will run straight, some of them will not start at all, and some of them will go off at tangents and bump into each other or bite each other. It's absolute carnage, but it's great fun because it's so unusual.
So, will Juno be back to defend her title?
I think so, yeah. As long as we live up here, we'll be coming back again. Particularly now, I suppose. We know she can do it now.
Scott Duffield, BBC News.
From corgis to kites, and people from more than 50 countries have gathered in China to show off their colourful kites. The Weifang International Kite Festival's been going since the 80s, and there were more than 250 teams competing this year, producing a riot of colour in the sky. The largest kite was a massive 30 metres long, or nearly 100 feet. Well, that's all from me. You can watch me on the BBC News channel this afternoon. The next news here on BBC One is at 10 to 5. Bye for now.
Good afternoon. It has been a mixed Easter weekend so far. Some places have been a lot wetter than others. Out towards the west of the UK, we've actually seen a fair bit of rain during Good Friday, Saturday, and up to 9 o'clock this morning in Plymouth, we'd had more than 40 millimetres of rain. Compare that with no rain at all in some northern and eastern parts. That might be changing a little bit now across the northeast of Scotland, for example, with some clouds, some bits and pieces of rain here. Also, this zone of cloud bringing some showery rain across the southeast of England, and an area of cloud bringing some outbreaks of mostly light and patchy rain across Northern Ireland. But for most other areas, a fair bit of sunshine to take us through the rest of this Easter Sunday. And for parts of East Wales, the West Midlands, some warmth as well. Temperatures up to around 17 or 18 degrees Celsius. Now, through this evening and tonight, we see this area of cloud and some showery rain drifting up from the south. Also, this band of cloud pushing in from the west. But where we hold on to some clear spells, parts of northeast Scotland, we could see a touch of frost, a milder start to Easter Monday further south and west. But we do see this weather front pushing its way in from the west. And that means I think there is a greater chance of seeing some outbreaks of rain during the day tomorrow. Some of that rain actually could be on the heavy side, but there will still be some spells of sunshine too. So taking a look at the detail, our weather front bringing this band of cloud and some outbreaks of showery rain, moving quite erratically northwards and eastwards. Northeast Scotland seeing some sunshine and showers for East Anglia and the southeast. And as the skies brighten across parts of Northern Ireland, Wales, the southwest of England, again here, we could see some heavy and possibly thundery showers breaking out through the afternoon. Temperatures around 17 degrees. Now that weather front will clear away into Tuesday, but we see another area of low pressure starting to swing its way in from the west. Now it looks like this will only bring rain across parts of Northern Ireland, West Wales, the southwest of England. Further north and east, aside from a few showers, it should stay largely dry with some spells of sunshine. And again, those temperatures in the sunny spots up to around 17 or 18 degrees. Now that low looks set to drop away southwards as we move through Tuesday night and into Wednesday. High pressure building from the north, so a lot of dry weather around for the middle part of the week. But this weather setup starting to introduce more of an east or northeasterly flow of winds. So that could bring a fair bit of cloud across eastern Scotland and northeast England, and also take the edge off the temperatures here, maybe just 11 or 12 degrees. The warmest weather will be found a little bit further south and west. By Thursday, we may see some showery rain drifting across southern parts of England, South Wales. Elsewhere, a fair bit of cloud, but some sunny spells too, but still with that nagging northeasterly breeze. So just 11 degrees there in Newcastle, perhaps 16 for Liverpool and for Cardiff. Bit of uncertainty in the forecast for the end of the week. This area of high pressure tries to hold on, tries to keep things dry. We do see a frontal system attempting to push in from the west. Now, it looks most likely that on Friday things will be largely dry, but this weather front could just make a little bit more progress, bringing some rain into the west. We'll keep you posted on that one. Temperature-wise, we're looking at highs of 11 to 17 degrees, so not the most dramatic week of weather ahead. There will be some rain, some spells of sunshine too. Check your local forecast on the BBC Weather app.
Quick look at live sport today on the BBC. The Crucible curse strikes again, eh? Top snooker on BBC Two now and on iPlayer. Also on iPlayer, exciting weekend of women's Six Nations rugby. Wales v Ireland from 2:45.
This whole world is lifeless and dead.
They all went mad. I saw something.
There's nothing there.
It's an empty room.
Get back!
Doctor Who continues Saturday at 7:20 on BBC One and iPlayer.